Sorry? Right. Right, we're at 6:30. I've got my mic working now. So, good evening. Thank you to everyone for attending this meeting of Chorley Liaison on Wednesday the 15th of October 2025. My name is Councillor France and I'm the chair of this committee. My vice chair is Borough and County Councillor Kim Snape. Please note this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. When you're speaking, please speak towards the microphone so everyone can hear you. Please do not obstruct your mouth to ensure that anyone lip reading can do so. If anyone is having issues, please let Democratic Services know. Some housekeeping. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarm sounds, please exit the way you came in. Please ensure that any mobile phones are switched to silent. If the technology fails, I will adjourn the meeting to try and resolve the issue. Apologies. We've got apologies from County Councillor Eddie Riggetts, Stuart Cluelaw from Adlington, Ian Horsfield from Anderton, and Borough Councillor Craig Southern. Yes, Julia. Right, has everybody had the opportunity to have a look at the minutes? And is there any issues to raise on the accuracy of the minutes? Yes.
Barbara, I think I was here at the meeting, but I'm not on the list of attendees.
We can change that, can't we? Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Any other issues?
Could we just look at the... Oh, they're working now. Thank you very much. Come on, right now.
And now? Yeah, we seem to have a little bit of an issue, Julie, I'm afraid. We'll try and soldier on anyway. Right. Item 3 is an update on planning matters. I think this is going to be done. Kevin Foster's here, Head of Planning Enforcement. I think Kevin's going to do this over 3 headings. Is that right, Kevin? So, how you want to do it, correct me if I'm wrong, is he'll present something and take questions on that item and then go on to the next one when we're finished. And that way, questions on that one and then the third one. If we do it that way, and then obviously we try and keep it limited. So over to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Chair. So, as the Chair mentioned, there are 3 separate reports on your agenda as part of the update on planning matters. So, the first is concerning care and children's homes. The second is on the grey belt, and the final report is on the introduction of an Article 4 direction relating to houses of multiple occupation. I'll summarise them individually and then take any questions. So the first report relates to care and children's homes. So there are 2 types of applications that we receive in respect of care and children's homes. The first being a certificate of proposed lawful use, which is where the applicant is seeking a determination to agree that the change of use isn't material and doesn't require planning permission. And then the second is a planning application in the traditional sense, in which residents and members can comment upon. So the report sets out the 2 different processes that are in place and the type of issues that can be considered as part of each type of submission. So I'm happy to take any questions on this paper at this point. Thanks, Chair.
Have we any questions on that one for Kevin?
That's it. You're not going to say anything about it. It's just a report. So obviously there's stuff to do with the Lancashire children in our care sufficiency strategy. which is worthy of a mention, saying that the county think they've got capacity. Do you want to talk about that? That a lot of the children's homes that are emerging as a trend are private nursing, private children's home, but they've got an obligation to go through the planning process and have to be Ofsted registered as well. Do I have to be raising these issues? Because it's just that in Coppell particularly, I don't understand. Right, sorry, I've not much voice, yeah. Obviously, there's a proliferation of children's homes being established that are doing things sort of back to front, getting up and running, and then if they're spotted or whatever, they're applying for certificates of lawfulness and getting on with everything else they need to comply with. Most children's homes are not significant in that they function really well, but when they don't, we have some difficulty, and that's what's really coming on the radar at the moment, that we need to have remedy when things do go wrong. And when they haven't gone through any kind of planning process, it's even more worrying. And if there's an element attached to it with vulnerable young people running away, getting into difficulty as a vulnerable person, antisocial behaviour occurring, it puts lots of pressures on services. And as a parish council, we've struggled, and we'd really like to see what the experience is in other areas, really, to work out solutions about, to reassure, take practical steps and some community action, really, to resolve this issue. Most of it, can be dealt with if people are responsible enough to come to planning. But it's not the case.
Just to come back on the point there about the sufficiency and the sort of over-concentration of such uses in particular areas, they aren't matters that we can consider through the planning process. I'm aware of the sufficiency strategy from Lancashire County Council to say that there is no demand for children from Lancashire in terms to be placed in such facilities at this time. But that's not a matter that we can consider as part of the planning application process, I'm afraid.
Yeah, so from a community's point of view, we have been investigating quite a number of issues that we've had with children's homes, particularly poor management of that. And as you say, they are regulated by Ofsted, not the council. But we've had many meetings with Ofsted, including the police and the local authority who have placed these children. And sometimes they are many, many miles away. In fact, some of the local authorities are from London, who are placing children in and about our region. So it is a very difficult situation. It's been dealt with on a partnership approach with all those other partners. In some instances, we've had lots of difficulties, particularly with unregistered and unregulated children's homes, particular authorities placing children in homes that have not been registered with Ofsted. We are taking action with Ofsted and working with them to get them properly regulated, and including the particular local authority and asking them to really remove children from properties that aren't registered with Ofsted. It's been a very difficult and challenging time for us, particularly because we haven't got a huge amount of powers to deal with this. But particularly from antisocial behaviour, we've been looking at taking action on that side of our powers that we've got as a local authority. And we are asking people to make sure that we're aware of the issues, they are reporting them to the police, because again, as much information as we possibly can, as much reports from the police as we possibly can get, will give us more evidence to take some action against some of these unregulated homes.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any more questions for Kevin on that one, or are we going to let him move on to the next one, which is grey belt guidance? Bit of a grey area, that, isn't it?
Thanks, Chair. This is one that members present tonight who are on Planning Committee will be quite familiar with. So the concept of grey belt was introduced when the National Planning Policy Framework was updated in December last year, and introduced paragraph 155, which is of particular relevance, and that paragraph is actually replicated in your report at paragraph 5. So for a site to be grey belt, there is an assessment that must be undertaken. So firstly, it's got to be within the green belt. So that's an important thing to consider, because there's not all of the countryside, what people may assume is green belt, is actually green belt. So the first step is green belt. Secondly, there must be a demonstrable unmet need for that type of development proposed. So, for example, the council can't demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing at the moment, so there is an unmet need. So that's the first test. The site needs to be assessed against purposes A, B and D of including land within the green belt. Now, I've included the purposes of including land within the green belt in paragraph 2 of the report. So it's to check the unrestricted sprawl of large built-up areas, and large built-up areas are defined as towns. It's to prevent neighbouring towns merging into one another, and to preserve the setting of the special character of historic towns. So if the site is subject to, has a significant impact against one of those purposes of including land within the green belt, then we can look to refuse an application on grey belt purposes. So there are a number of designations which are set out in paragraph 10 of the report, which also are exempt from being identified, the site being identified as grey belt. So this includes habitat sites such as sites of special scientific interest, designated green spaces, national designated landscapes, national parks, irreplaceable habitats, designated heritage assets, and areas that are identified at risk of flooding by the Environment Agency. So if a site doesn't have any of those constraints, it then moves on to the next stage, which is the site's got to be in a sustainable location to be considered to be a grey belt site. So we've had a number of appeal decisions that relate to this matter, and includes matters such as access to public transport, local shops and services, and things like that. Finally, if we have a major development which is more than 10 houses, they must provide 50% affordable housing if they're putting forward a grey belt argument, but to date we've not determined any applications on that basis. So this has had a significant impact on the way certain types of development are now considered in the borough. It's a real sort of change in shift from what we considered previously for greenbelt development before December of last year. And it's led to a significant number of applications, principally for permissions in principle, which are a type of application that just seem to seek the principle of developing a site, but without seeking any approvals in terms of access or any detailed technical matters. So it's considered that this trend will continue for the foreseeable future until the council's able to demonstrate a 5-year supply of new homes. So that most likely will be when the local plan progresses towards adoption next year, and at that point we can sort of close the door, if you will, on grey belt proposals. So I'm happy to take any questions on that.
We've got Councillor Chris Snow is the first one.
As a member of the planning committee here, I think we've been well instructed and trained. We had a good training course to show us what a grey belt site is. We've now failed on 2 appeals that we didn't give planning permission in quite rural areas. I think a lot of people will be very surprised of the definition of grey belt. Last night we looked at 3 very, very agricultural sites that were one on the edge of a settlement, which I could see where that was coming from. The other 2, green fields, really green fields. So don't be surprised if we, as planning committee members, are forced to approve these applications, because if we don't turn them down, we'll lose at appeal, and potentially, if we keep losing at appeal, it bad for our reputation. We get into special measures and potentially incur costs. So, you know, we are an outsider really in this, and I've never felt have so little power to make intelligent decisions on planning. It makes the rationale behind HMOs look strong. Okay, my comments.
Thank you, Chris. And as a member of planning committee, I thoroughly agree with you. Councillor Alan Platt.
Thank you, Chair. The PIPs that are being approved, because obviously we've no choice. When you say once the local plan's done, dusted and fitted in, it'll close the door, how will the fact that you've already approved the planning in principle on a site impact on the thing when the full application comes in?
Thanks, Councillor Platt. Yeah, so the applications that we've approved will have permission for a period of time in which to submit their detailed technical consent. So they will be there, assuming that they come forward for the detailed approval at the next stage. So they've got 3 years to submit that information.
Yes, Alan.
Sorry, Kevin, that wasn't the question. The fact that I'm a developer, you've granted me planning in principle on a site on some poor young lady's cow field next door, who was very upset, by the way, last night. But they've got planning in principle. Now, if they come back, is there some sort of, will they get preferential treatment with the planning application, because you've already basically said, yes, you can build on it?
I mean, it would depend on the timing. If they come back in 3 years' time, then we're in a different policy position at that point. So if they come back in the next 12 months, then it would be a different story. They'd have a lot more sort of lot more justification that we would look to approve something on that site. Now, if they come in with technical detailed consent, which is linked to the permission in principle, then we'd have to deal with it, and it would be considered on its own merits. But that's the thing with the permissions in principle, is it does push back the consideration of a lot of these technical issues, such as access, flood risk, environmental impacts, to the next stage. But yeah, it all depends on the timing, essentially.
Yes, go on, gentleman.
Sorry, just to get this square in my head, the grey belt, does it have to be attached to the village area? Does one boundary of the land proposed to be developed on actually have to boundary up to housing or a road within the village, or can it be a field 2 fields away?
It doesn't necessarily have to adjoin any other development, or even adjoin a road, because it is just purely in principle. Now, they may have issues further down the line when it comes to technical detailed consent, when they need to show a suitable access and things like that. So these issues still do get considered as part of the process. But it's essentially it could be a greenfield anywhere. Yeah.
Councillor Margaret Frowns.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask a question about employment development within Greenbelt or so-called grey belt land? You talked about there has to be 50% of affordable housing for major developments if they are housing developments. What happens if this is an employment, an industrial development of a major scale? What are the implications with that? Thank you.
So if an employment development is proposed in the Greenbelt, they have to demonstrate that there's an unmet need for that development within the borough. So that's what they'd have to do. If they can't demonstrate that unmet need, then it can't be considered to be a grey belt site. So that's the key aspect in employment development, is showing that there's an unmet need.
Councillor Aaron Beaver.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just struggling with a few bits of terminology. If I knock that police station down, that's technically called a brownfield site. Yeah. If there's a farm in the green belt and I knock that down, is that brown or is that grey?
That would depend on the assessments that would have to be carried out. I think the term grey belt probably isn't the greatest term to describe some of the sites that are being brought forward for development, but that's the term that the government chose to use for that. So it's, a grey belt site can be a previously developed site, or it could be a greenfield site.
If I may come back, Chair. So using Google, grey belt is a term used in the UK planning for land within the green belt that is underused, previously developed, or contributes weakly to the purpose of the green belt. So we're in the green belt, there's my field, and I'm not using it. But someone wants to build on that bit that's not being used. How does this green bit get grey?
That's where we undertake the assessment against the purposes of including land within the green belt. So the things that I mentioned, I'll just go back up to them in the report. So in paragraph 2 of the report, there's 5 purposes for including land within the green belt. So A, B and D are the ones that we can assess the site against the grey belt guidance that the government's produced. So if a site doesn't significantly contribute to checking the unrestricted sprawl of large built-up areas, and the key bit there is large built-up areas, to prevent neighbouring towns merging into one another, or to preserve the setting and special character of historic towns. If a site doesn't contribute significantly to either of those purposes, then it would be considered to be grey belt, assuming there was an unmet need and it was in a sustainable location as well.
Well, Chair, I'm just being a bit thick here. There's Chorley, there's Exton, and the bit in the middle is green. But because someone wants to, all they're going to do is get rid of green belt. That's all that's happening here. Because someone has changed the colour and said, well, that's not used and that doesn't really fit. But I want to build. And that, to me, it seems to be the overriding factor here. Someone wants to build and no one's got the backbone to say no.
Mike, that's so. For example, if using that specific example that you just put forward, if someone wanted to fill the gap between Chorley and Exton, in the green belt, I would say that would contradict the purposes of including land within the green belt significantly. So it would that it would lead to unrestricted sprawl of a large built-up area, because Chorley town itself would be considered to be a large built-up area. So using that specific example, then I don't think it would be a grey belt site. But the guidance is written in such a way that the impacts have to be significant. So we do set it out in the committee reports because they are mainly coming through on permissions in principle, but we set it out in the committee report what the impacts are and the assessment as the government set it out in their guidance, which of course is what we have to apply when making planning decisions.
On plat.
I think, are we safe to say that the government has basically declared open season on the Greenbelt then? Because I don't know if you were at the planning committee a few months ago when the one from in Unswalton was on Southport Road, and I happened to mention that you don't have the 5-year housing supply, but every field from the Exton Mills to Rufford could suddenly become part of your housing supply, and I was taken to task by the man from Del Pol who said, oh, of course it won't happen. Now, reading this, I can't see why not.
I mean, I can't comment on the government's intentions in terms of their plans for the Greenbelt, but I think it is intended as a tool for to allow development in areas where they are tightly constrained by the Greenbelt, where they can't meet their housing need. So I think it's an encouragement to local planning authorities to get an up-to-date plan in place, which then obviously will close the door on the grey belt argument.
Yes, sorry.
Sorry, can I just clarify what an item? This is mentioned quite a lot, large built-up areas. Yeah. Is there a definition of a large built-up area?
There is a definition. I can come back to you with the precise wording of it if that's any use. I've not got it before me at this moment in time, but I can certainly provide that. That's not a problem.
Katrina.
The first one is quite easy. You say 2026. What date about do you hope the 5-year plan to be sorted? The second one is implications for Chorley. Number 18, you put that 3 appeal decisions went against you, right? You've also put, whilst disappointing, these have provided useful context in considering similar proposals moving forward. But what are they?
So in terms of the appeal decisions, there are 2 along Southport Road that were refused by Planning Committee earlier this year. So they give context in terms of what grey belt is, because at that time the guidance had only been out a week, and they also give context and guidance on what the inspectorate considered to be a sustainable site. So in terms of access to shops and services and public transport and things like that. Oh, sorry, in terms of the 2026 point as well. So yeah, so the local plan is going through examinations starting in December. They run until mid-January, so I think the aim will be to have the local plan adopted later on in 2026. I'm not sure of the date. It's outside of the council's control at the moment, but I think the aim is to have it adopted by the end of next year at the latest.
Did you want to ask a question? No, all right. Councillor Snow.
Sorry,
Go on,
just following on from...
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, those just the lessons learned from those appeals, like I alluded to earlier, is unfortunately we grant the planning applications next time. I think the planning inspectorate looked on us favourably insofar as they weren't unreasonable for us to turn down, so they didn't award costs against us. But if we continue to do that, we might well take a different point of view.
Go on, fire away.
Thank you. Couple of things. First of all, I'm just wondering how stringent the urban spread is being enforced, because I've noticed that between Maudsley and Eccleston, they seem to be merging and just granting everything that's applied for. And secondly, I'm just wondering what's in place to stop people building 9 houses for £1 million houses and then reapplying for another 9 so that, to get around the 10 house thing for affordable housing.
Yeah, so in terms of the neighbouring towns merging into each other, sort of in the west of the borough, that they aren't towns, they're villages. So that's where we're sort of we're stuck in terms of the assessment that we're not allowing development out in those parts of the borough doesn't result in towns merging into each other. So that's why you may be seeing quite a lot of sort of those types of applications in that part of the world. In terms of, what was this, the second question again, sorry?
I was wondering what stops developers building 9 houses with no affordable housing in them and then doing it again and again, so they don't have to build affordable houses, because obviously they don't want to.
Yeah, that's it. We've got tools within our planning policies to stop them doing that. So if they were to come in and do that, and it would be difficult for them to, if they come back in for revised plans, we would then apply the policies for the total number of houses that were proposed on the site rather than the different parcels. If they were sort of, we'd combine the two, if you will.
Are there any more? Anybody else?
I'm going
Oh,
to,
Katrina, sorry,
it's
Katrina.
okay. I'm going to ask. I'm interested in the 9 and the 9 because they do it in Exton. How long do they have? If they wait 12 months and do it, they've been up 12 months. Do you look at the next 9 and say, no, this should have been this should have been a 20 house or an 18 house?
Yeah, there would be a judgment to have then. For example, if they'd built 9 houses and 9 houses were occupied and then they come in for another 9 houses next door, then it would be considered to be 2 separate schemes at that point, because if you've got planning permission for something and you've implemented it and there's people living there, then they come back in for another 9 next door, they'd be treated as separate schemes.
Right, thank you. Are we going to move on to the next one, which is HMOs? Go on, Kevin.
Thanks, Chair. So, yeah, the final part of this planning update is just a copy of the report to full council, which recommended the introduction of an immediate Article 4 direction restricting the change of use of existing residential properties to small houses of multiple occupation. So I say small houses of multiple occupation because these are the ones that can accommodate 3 to 6 unrelated people. If they accommodate 7 or more people, then they require planning permission in any event. So this was agreed by full council on the 23rd of September and came into force the day after. So small HMOs, which were previously permitted development, which means that they didn't need planning permission, now require planning permission and must come through the planning process. So I'm happy to take any questions on the implications of the introduction of the Article 4 direction.
Councillor Beaver.
So a house comes forward to be an HMO. Is there any more strength to stop it coming than if there wasn't an Article 4?
In terms of our current planning policies, there isn't, but we do have emerging planning policies in the new local plan, which deals with over-concentration of HMOs. So we are in a position that that's not received any objection as part of the consultation process of the new local plan. So we can start giving that weight in the decision-making process. So we would look, so that stops existing properties being sandwiched between two HMOs and stops rows of HMOs being created. So we would be looking to apply that policy now. We've not got any applications currently for any small HMOs in the borough, so it's not something that we need to be overly concerned about at the moment, but it will be applied once we do start to receive these applications.
Because we would discuss this about what is the meaning of too many? What is too many? What is over? And I don't mean necessarily one building, because this place is littered, peppered with them. Because the residents are telling me every time I go out. So what do I tell them? There's more coming.
Well, I mean, has been a lot of HMOs created without the need for planning permission previously. Now, they'll stop now. They'll have to come through the planning process, and residents will have opportunities to make representations, and those will come before planning committee at the appropriate time. We can't say an overall number is too many. The policy in the new local plan is seeking to avoid over-concentration in specific points. So like by not sandwiching and not creating rows of HMOs in streets and things like that. So we can't say that we're not allowing any more, because there will be appropriate locations for some within the borough, but what we're seeking to avoid is having too many in too close proximity to each other.
Councillor Margaret Franz.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned that neighbouring councils have had these similar Article 4s in place for some time. I'm wondering whether there's any evidence to show that having that article in place has reduced the number of HMOs actually being given planning application and going ahead compared to the situation before then.
I'm not aware of any evidence at the minute, but I can certainly look into it and get back to you on that one.
Julia.
I very much welcome the opportunity to have a training support session with parish councillors and borough councillors regarding the changing landscape with HMOs. It's a particular concern, not concern, that's the wrong word, issue in some of our parishes where we've got neighbourhood plans. We've not really accounted for a proliferation of HMOs in our parishes, and we've had some unsettled concerns from residents to our parish council meetings, and concerns about residential character and amenity and the cumulative impacts of having more HMOs in the area, and how we're going to welcome, support and address really the extra demands that different population, just the changing community. So I think it'd be really appropriate to do some work with it, just to really look at a wide range of issues that do come out of it, with just waste collection, because there was an unfortunate incident not involving any criminality in the near district of Coppell, and it's just caused quite a lot of concern and made people think about safeguarding, safety in schools, which is the whole programme of things in place, to reassure people, but it's not sort of widely known, and unfortunately, social media plays its role in sort of just unsettling residents. We've got a job of work to do as parish councillors to set our stall out, and we've got 3 housing developments coming forward in Coppell, and we're ensuring we welcome new families. It's good for our schools, it's good for our businesses, and it's good for our residents, and but we want to ensure that safeguarding is recognised and protocols are in place, and that we feel that we've got a responsive structure in place to deal with anything if anything ended, just answer to questions. Really, it's beyond the sort of the realm of most parish councillors in Coppell at the moment, because they're not that close to planning, and it's great that we've had this initiative come forward for the borough and the local plan. Now it's just a case of sharing that information with the wider councillors and community.
Just one quick point to come back on is that I think we're looking to arrange a session with the parish councils later this year, dealing with a number of planning issues. I think it's early December we're looking at doing that. So in terms of the planning issues surrounding HMOs and other sort of uses and types of development that we've discussed tonight, we are looking to arrange a further session with the parish and town councils later this year.
Jennifer.
Just to also add, from a separate aspect of it through the Housing Act, some HMOs do require licensing and do require inspecting. So we're at a position now where we also want to look at all the HMOs in the area, whether they require licensing or they don't require licensing under the Housing Act. As a local authority, we want to be proactive to inspect those existing HMOs to ensure that they're safe, to ensure they're being properly regulated and managed by the owners of the HMOs. So what I would encourage anybody to let me know about them. Obviously, from a council point of view, we know about the ones that need licensing, we know about the ones that need planning, but there's quite a number that have come in that haven't required in the past plan and permission, so we may not know about them. So it's just to encourage to send us that information in. I'm quite more than happy for you to email me with any details of HMOs that you're aware of. We will add them to our inspection list to get them inspected, properly regulated. If they require licensing, to get them licensed as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Councillor Allenplatt.
Thanks, Jennifer. Can we email all the parish council clerks out asking them to pass this on to their members? So I'll get it around the villages.
Are we all done? Thank you. Kevin? I think that's it. You're welcome to leave if you want to now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Moving on. We've got an item now about local government reorganisation. And Holly Wobbs is here, Head of People, Policy and Partnerships, to give us a presentation. There's no decision been made yet, but Holly's going to do a presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'll just move this closer. Right, so I'm hoping that everybody has a sort of level of broad understanding of the fact that we are heading at the moment towards a plan to reorganise local government. I am going to start from the beginning, so apologies to those of you who are also Chorley Borough councillors who may have heard some of this information before. Please feel free to let your minds wander through the first couple of slides. Do you want me to take the... So, the government sort of set out that two-tier government needs to change. So Lancashire is actually the last remaining two-tier area in the north. There are a number of other southern counties that are two-tier, but we are a bit of a lone island. And that means that essentially county councils and district councils need to be moved on from, and the new world of unitary councils be applied more consistently across the country. For us, that means that all of the councils in Lancashire cease to exist. So this isn't a merger, it's not an amalgamation, it is the end of the current councils in Lancashire and the creation of brand new council structures. And to be clear, that does not apply to parish councils. Parish councils are not part of this plan in terms of reorganisation. This is about districts, boroughs, counties, and the current unitaries in Lancashire, because obviously Lancashire County is actually quite complex because we have Lancashire County Council, we have district councils, and then we also have Blackburn with Darwen and Blackpool, which are existing small unitary councils. And at the moment, there are a number of different proposals that are being developed by various councils working together. So the government has gone out to everybody, every council in Lancashire equally, be that the county, be that the districts, be that the unitaries, and invited them to draft proposals and submit them for reorganisation. And at the moment, that plan looks like a number of people supporting various proposals, including one for a 2-unitary Lancashire, one for a 3-unitary Lancashire, 2 separate proposals for a 4-unitary Lancashire, and one for a 5-unitary Lancashire, which I'm going to go into shortly. So this is the timeline. So this is just designed to sort of illustrate, firstly, that this is a long process. So this started out with the English Devolution White Paper, which came out in December 2024. We have then received the invitation to submit proposals, and we are in the proposal development period now. Those proposals have got to be submitted by the 28th of November, so we are very quickly approaching that deadline. And that means that the proposals are well into development, so we are well on with this. After those proposals are submitted, we're not actually going to get a decision for quite some time on what local government is going to look like in Lancashire. So at the moment, it is still expected that elections for Chorley Borough Council will take place in May 2026. There are ongoing discussions about that, but that is still the expected timeline. We will then receive a ministerial decision in around July next year, so that's expected before the summer recess. And then we will need something called a structural change order. So this is the statutory instrument that allows that local government is reorganised in Lancashire. We then have elections to the new shadow councils. So we won't have borough elections in May 2027. We will have elections to the new shadow authority. It will commence its shadow year, and then vesting day, so the first day that the new councils exist, is the 1st of April 2028. So Chorley Borough Council and all of the other councils in Lancashire cease to exist on the 31st of March. That's their last day of operation. So I'm leaving you all in suspense here while we move on through the slides. So this is the criteria that the government has set out. I'm not going to read it out to you. It's relatively straightforward, and this is also the top criteria. There are other sort of sub-points that the government has made. But the sort of key point of this really is that the proposals have to cover the whole of Lancashire. So everyone who's drafting a proposal can't just deal with their area. They have to deal with everything in Lancashire and consider what the best option is for the whole of the county. Now, obviously, different people have different views on what that is, but you can't just deal with Chorley in isolation. We have to think about what is the best thing for Chorley in the broader context of Lancashire. There's also something important here around population size. So this one is something you may have heard discussed. There was a lot of conversation about this at the time when this guidance was first published. The 500,000 population size is a guide, and the government have said that. It's about what makes sense for an area. And I think what's really important when you think about Lancashire in this is we are a rural district. When we think about population size, a very large population for us means a huge geographic area that it is very difficult to deliver services across and to make sure that our people are democratically represented. And so there is a difference between doing reorganisation in a rural area like Lancashire than there is in doing it in somewhere like Manchester. If you think about, cities that are densely populated, that is different, and our residents have different needs. Yeah, thanks. So we've already done some stakeholder engagement, and I think it's really important to make the distinction between engagement and consultation, because the government are going to do a statutory consultation after Christmas. This is about us initially asking residents and stakeholders what matters to you in Lancashire. So we did this across the whole of Lancashire. All 15 of the councils worked together on this. Everyone did the same exercise, and we had one consultant who delivered this piece of engagement. And what we were really seeking there is to understand what matters to our residents, what matters to our stakeholders, and what matters to people in Lancashire is this concept of local. This is really, really important. It came across extremely strongly in the consultation exercise and the engagement exercise. It was mentioned 9,000 times out of 13,000 responses. So when we're designing local government in Lancashire, we need to bear that in mind, that it needs to be local to our communities. It needs to be related to what people care about. We ask people how they define their local area. People don't talk about their local area as being Lancashire. They talk about their village. They talk about their town. That is the stuff that matters to our residents. And interestingly, actually 63% of respondents said that they were quite happy with the service that they currently receive from local government. And I think we would agree with that. I think we do a really good job in local government in delivering services to residents. And actually, either the same or a different 63% said that they would like to keep the current structure of local government, but their concerns were mainly around that loss of local identity. They had a real concern that government was going to be really far away from their place, from the people, and that there wouldn't be an understanding of what matters to them in their town or in their village. But equally, whilst people said, yes, things are doing really, really well, there were these themes of things that clearly do need to improve for our residents, which I don't think will come as a surprise to any of you as representatives of your local areas. People felt that infrastructure and transport isn't good enough, that there is more to do around safety and policing, that there are real concerns for people around health and social care. So when we, as Chorley Council, are thinking around our objectives when it comes to local government reorganisation, we firstly have to acknowledge that the government has made this commitment to reorganise. That is not something that we can change. And whilst we could choose not to engage, the reality is that 15 councils have been invited to submit proposals. And so unless we could persuade 14 other councils not to submit proposals, somebody is going to submit something for Lancashire. And it's really important that we as local leaders develop something that is the best fit for Chorley and for the residents of Chorley. And it's also about considering that criteria. So we can't write something that is perfect just for Chorley, but that doesn't stand up against that criteria. We have to do it within the framework that we've been given. So these are, broadly speaking, the key proposals that are going in at the moment, as far as we are aware. So just putting that caveat on there as well. So as you can see here, there are 5 different options that are being developed for Lancashire. Lancashire County Council are supporting a 2 unitary option, which splits the county north and south. Obviously, those are large geographic areas. That you are talking about a very different set of communities that are being served by those 2 unitary councils. There's a group of 5 local authorities that are supporting a 3 unitary Lancashire model. And so you can see there that for Chorley, that would be Chorley, South Ribble, West Lancs and Preston together in this South Lancashire area. Chorley Council are working with a set of 6 partners to develop an option for a 4 unitary Lancashire. So this is Chorley together with South Ribble and West Lancs. And then you've got, in the main difference here really is that you have this new North Unitary Council, which is Ribble Valley, Lancaster and Preston. Now, interestingly, of course, those 3 councils also support this option. So the 3 councils that are arguably most impacted by the 3 proposal do support the 4 proposal. Burnley and Pendle are supporting a 5 proposal, which doesn't have any impact on what would happen in Chorley, but does create 2 smaller unitary authorities over in the east. And then there is an alternative 4 that's been developed by Blackpool Council, which splits the districts. Now, it's important to note that the government have actually said that they would prefer that we did not split the districts, that they would prefer that we use the districts as building blocks. There's a lot of really good reasons for that. Some of them are really straightforward around council tax bases and how do you split staffing if you're looking at splitting a borough council up? How do you decide which bit of your services delivers to a town? Because that's actually not how we deliver services on a day-to-day basis. So as you can see, the proposal that's being developed by Chorley Council with partners is the one that has got the greatest amount of support. And this links back into this localism point. This is around us making sure that whilst we meet the government's criteria, we are also staying as local as we can, whilst those boroughs are still, those new unitary areas are still going to be sustainable, because they've got to be sustainable in the longer term. So I just want to talk a little bit about neighbourhood area committees, because I was trying to think of which aspects of a lot of the stuff that's going on in the local government reorganisation world might be particularly interest to yourselves as parish councillors. So the government haven't prescribed neighbourhood area committees as much as heavily encouraged that we consider them. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what they are. So I think it's important to note that they don't replace any existing structure. And they're not a new concept either. Those people who've been around for a while will have seen these before. But essentially it's around enhancing community engagement, and it's around bringing partners together and parish councils as a valued partner in that, but also around working across the sector to bring people together in an area. And those areas would, generally speaking, be larger anyway than a current parish footprint. So not as large as an existing borough area, but perhaps you might have 3 or 4 per each current borough area as we stand at the moment. So what are we doing right now? So at Chorley Council, we are working with external consultants, so experts in the area of reorganisation and in understanding things like economic baselining and finance. And we're also working with other Lancashire councils on issues that are more broad than just the proposal development, because the reality is the proposals are only one part of this journey. We then have to actually mobilise local government reorganisation. We have to make it happen no matter what geography the government decide. And we also need to make sure we can continue to deliver services whilst we move forward on that journey. And then we will be going through a period of engagement and decision making throughout October and November, and heading into submission date on the 28th of November. So I think that's sort of everything that I had to present to you. I wanted to open it up to questions.
I'll open it to the floor. Anybody got questions? As I say, it's not straightforward, but have we got any questions? Aaron?
These might be unfair questions. Come when these elections have gone firm, will parish council, do you think parish councils will still exist? Because Chorley Council won't.
There is no current intention as part of the white paper for this to have any impact on parish councils in terms of their continuing existence. They are not part of the plans for reorganisation. Is there potentially a stronger role for parish councils in that close to communities role? I think there probably is. I think that's what it's intended for neighbourhood area committees to do. But the white paper absolutely does not say that there is any intention to reorganise parish councils.
Does the white paper say at what point the boundary commission and say Chorley Council have 42 councillors, South Ribble have 50 and West Lancs have 45? Get rid of some.
So part of the proposal development is to establish how many councillors, and this is borough not parish, will be needed for the new councils. That is absolutely part of the proposal development, and the Boundary Commission have said that 99 is the maximum number per unitary council. So our proposal will need to take that into consideration and make that statement. So you're absolutely correct that the white paper intends to reduce the number of borough of councillors in Lancashire between the current number of county council and borough councillors to the new number of unitary councillors.
I don't think there'll be a problem in going down to the new numbers, but we're going to be getting rid of 38 councillors, and all of a sudden I think parish councils will be vital in this, because they're going to be less councillors, or spread over a bigger area, so it'll be vital for parishes.
I think also, Holly, we would lose county councillors, so it would be a bigger number than that, Aaron, because the parish councillors will no longer exist. Councillor Alan Platt.
Thanks, Chair. Presumably then at some stage you'll be looking to either parish or town council Chorley Centre. don't know if it'll be word for word, you'll have to play it back, but presumably at some stage you'll be looking to either parish or town council the Chorley Centre that isn't parish at the moment.
I think those discussions are more than likely going to take place. They're not part of the current programme of work, but you're absolutely right. How do you make sure that there's an equal level of representation? That is going to be a question I suspect that is asked. And how then the neighbourhood area committees play into that as well? How do you make sure that that's a consistent offer across the borough?
Hiya. A couple of things again. First of all, what's the plan to divide up debt, as all the different councils have different levels of debt, and who takes ownership of that debt? And secondly, if there's 5 different plans going into the government, are they just going to pick one arbitrarily and we don't really have any power in this? Or do you think our proposal actually makes any difference?
I think answering the first question is the government they've not said. If anyone who's more interested in sort of the real detail of this stuff might want to pay attention to some of the stuff that's happening in Surrey, because Woking have got an enormously high level of debt, which is why they've gone first. And the government have said that there is a plan for that debt. What they've interestingly, though, said is that they don't intend to apply that same level of support to other areas necessarily, but there is a level of vagueness, I think, that when it comes to council debt. In answer to the second question, I certainly hope that our proposal makes a difference, because we've put quite a lot of work into it. There is going to be this really important piece of consultation, and what I would say to all of you and as representatives is your voice matters in that, and the voice of your residents matters in that. You will take a view, I'm sure, on which is the best option for your area, for Chorley as a whole. But we do know that the government does intend to listen to that stakeholder feedback. As to who is going to make the decision, the government will be making the decision. So actually, you are right in one sense, in that actually they could just choose one of those options. We are intending, and our plan does meet that criteria in the best possible way that it can do, to give our proposal the best chance.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if, let me get this right in my head, whether the government and us are aiming at the best solution for the people or the best solution to save money. Which one do we think is the priority for the government?
I think that's probably a political question, isn't it? Well, the criteria is very, very clear, and that's the criteria that we are working to. Obviously, the longer-term sustainability of councils is really, really important, but we haven't explicitly been told, either through that criteria or through anything else, that one of those things is more important. I think I would probably say both of them are very important.
Thank you. Well,
Can I just ask a quick question? With the governance of this, when it all gets split up and we're going to combine to 2 or 4 areas, will that stay with the governance spread out between Chorley in this building, Leyland in another building, or will it all be centralised?
So we can't say what decision that new council will make around how it organises itself. What I will say is that in other areas who've been through reorganisation, they certainly seem to maintain the status quo when it comes to main bases for a period of time, whilst they decide what the best option is. If you look at Cumbria, if you look at North Yorkshire, there hasn't been wholesale move away from towns, certainly initially when it comes to reorganisation, but that will be a decision for the new unitary council for this area.
Okay, thank you.
have any more questions for Holly? Margaret?
Yeah, it's more in the way of a comment, really. Chorley Borough Council is particularly attractive to the rest of our neighbours because what you said about debt, we've borrowed money, yes. We've borrowed money to purchase assets, but the value of those assets is greater than the value of the debt. So in reality, we're in a much better financial position than a lot of our neighbours are. Thank you.
Right. Katrina?
Who those assets belong to?
So the assets of the current councils will transfer to the new unitary councils that cover that area. There will be some need to establish where there are potentially sort of shared assets. That will be part of the programme when it comes to the mobilisation. There will be some really specific arrangements that need to happen, but broadly speaking, if an asset is in your geographical area, it becomes the asset of the new unitary council on that geography.
You want to come back, Katrina? Yeah, certainly.
I don't know about Greater Manchester, but is it a moving feast? Would they have some, because you're saying we all have to be thinking about all different areas within Lancashire now, not just Chorley. I mean, I don't think we do just think about Chorley when we do Chorley. We do think about how it's going to radiate out to other towns and places. But if they're all wanting to meet, I don't know, how many people did you say there might possibly be? That all these, I'll call them councillors, whatever they're going to be called, will meet, like we just said, in Chorley, in Leyland, but do they have one central place that they all go to, or is it still split? Because if everybody's split, we might as well stay as, I know we haven't got a choice. I mean, I thought we lived in a democracy, and I'm being a bit iffy here. No, we haven't got a choice, it's being foisted on us. But if they are not, if they're all meeting individually, how are they are only doing what we're doing now, which is considering other areas, even though they're not necessarily sitting in those areas, if you know what I mean.
So current unitary councils will all meet together in one location. What we won't know is where that location would be and what the practical day-to-day would look like. So where staff would be, which building would be retained, where there might be opportunities to amalgamate into other locations. We don't have that level of detail, but where a unitary council exists currently, they do have a location where they will have meetings, as we do for Chorley Borough Council.
Presumably then they'll have places that residents can go and meet them. Because if you're if you're an Exton resident, usually you come to Chorley, don't you? But if it's moved further afield, some residents have difficulty getting 1 mile, let alone 25 miles perhaps. So that will be taken into consideration, I would assume.
I think this is where the local representation and accountability comes in, and that's actually why we want a smaller unitary council for a lot of those reasons. So yeah, I think those are really, really important points.
Yeah, you've got to get it first, though, haven't you? Thank you.
This committee at some stage, because I think we welcome the opportunity to have discussion and consult really about the detail. The devil is in the detail, and particularly the democratic deficit, if there is one. But, you know, I'd also like to see the appeal of devolution, what we're working towards, because obviously tonight we're limited in what we can discuss, and I'm sure you'll all relish the opportunity to get more information. Thanks.
It's probably a silly question, this, but I'll put a scenario out in front of everybody. We're splitting everything up, and you said before about if an asset sits within a certain boundary, it will become, that asset will then become part of that unitary body. This is going to sound silly. If all the gritters are in the wire and we split, do we share them or do we have to buy new gritters? If all the medical facilities for healthcare is in that particular area, do we have to share that or do we have to buy new gritters? Do we have to buy new healthcare representatives? Do we have to buy new services as a new unitary body?
So I think this is where there's not one set answer for everything. So where you've got a fixed asset like a library, that's relatively straightforward because you can't move the library. A gritter you can obviously move, so you'd be looking to divide those out across an area. I think there's another interesting point when you talk about healthcare professionals, where actually there might be opportunities in maybe specialist situations where we work together. We still work across a broader footprint because we recognise the benefits of working across a broader footprint and working in partnership with each other. So I think there are different answers depending on what the specifics are that will need to be worked through once we've got the decision from government.
Right, I think we'll move on now. It is obviously it is a little bit up in the air, no decisions have been made, so obviously a little bit difficult to give precise details on precise questions. Thank you very much, Ollie. Moving on, we've got two items requested from Horton Parish Council. Unfortunately, I've let Kevin go, Jennifer, so I'm going to have to do both. We have got some written responses, haven't we?
Yes, so we have had a written response regarding the bus service route. So the response I've received from our lobbying is from somebody called Ashley Weir, who's a Principal Transport Officer at Lancashire County Council. So the response is, our current tendered bus route network is formed by a number of services, with our key priorities to provide links between communities outside the commercial bus service network and to support routes that might otherwise disappear. Whilst we are able to provide a number of services with the resources available, it is not possible to fund every public transport aspiration. We have previously explored the option of how to provide a bus service through Brindle. However, we do not have any services in the area that could facilitate such a route. It is not as straightforward to divert an existed tendered bus service without directly impacting on others. It is likely a whole new service would be required, and whilst this could incorporate existing student movements to assist sustainability, significant funding would still need to be required for even a basic 2-hourly daytime service. Currently, there is no capacity within existing resources for a completely new service to the area, and whilst we have received extra funding for additional bus routes, other service options have been prioritised based on potential passenger numbers and likely future sustainability. The request certainly has some merits. However, we are awaiting an announcement from the government regarding future funding for bus services before we can realistically commit to any additional ambitions. In the meantime, we will be grateful for any feedback in terms of aspirational times that residents would like to travel. This would allow us to build a picture of how any potential service provision could best be provided. So, effectively, the answer is no, but they'd like to hear from us. So, I think from us as Chorley Council, what we can provide, if necessary, is to do a survey and help support a survey to ask residents of the area what's the likely bus routes they would need and the times. I do understand some work's already been done on that, so but any help we can assist, lobbying back with Lancashire County Council for them to reassess that.
Thank you, Jenny. Meryl.
Right, Meryl Urry, Horton Parish Council. I don't actually know how seriously to respond to that. Could I please have a copy of that in writing to the clerks of both Brindle and to Horton?
Yes.
Most of you, the older people here, know me. I've been coming to this meeting now probably for some 15, 16 years. I've been a car driver, but also a bus service user, and all I can say is please don't put something online for a petition.
Mm-hmm.
Speak to your service users, the local people, because you've got people. Brindle has no service at all. Horton has a fragmented service. We can get to Preston, we can get to Blackburn. Case in point, I came tonight, it took me an hour and a quarter from what is usually a 20-minute car driver. So please don't have somebody in isolation doing a logistics exercise who's a car driver. Try and work out how to work with 4 different bus companies that actually operate, because to get from Horton to Chorley by bus, I left house at 5 o'clock, I got a Transdev bus to Preston, and then from there I got a stagecoach bus to Chorley. That took 1 hour and a quarter. Tonight, if I'm quick, I'll get the 8 o'clock bus, and it will take me about the same length of time to get back if I can make the connections. If not, it'll be 9:45 to leave this meeting on the public transport system. You've got young mums with prams who are in social isolation. You've got school children who live in Horton or Brindle who can't go to the local high schools at Bamber Bridge because there's a contract between Blackburn Council and the Bamber Bridge schools. They go right past our road to Bamber Bridge schools that our kids in the 3-mile radius can't go. They can't get to some of the Chorley high schools. They're going out by bus nearly as far as Bolton to get the secondary entitlement, which means they can't use the youth zone because their buses are taking that long to get back. They've missed their time allocation. You've got shoppers who just literally, we vote in Chorley. We want to be able to shop in Chorley, but it's not possible. If you have to live in our area, you're tied to either a Bamber Bridge doctor or possibly one at Chorley, towards Chorley if you're lucky, which means you can only have a Preston hospital or a Chorley hospital. To access those, particularly in winter, if you need treatment, it will take an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours to get to Chorley Hospital. Longer to Preston, yes, we don't have to park a car, and there is a shuttle bus service, a great bus service. The 125 is magic, but the bus companies do not cooperate with each other. They all operate out of the same bus stations, but they're rivals. I know it's across from one village to Chorley, but whilst you are collecting our council tax money, can you please consider that we have a right of access? Because it's the people who haven't got the ability to drive a car who are actually suffering the most. And it literally is from young mums to pensioners, and all we want to do is access our town centre. Okay?
The other one is the performance issue, Jennifer. Are you all right with that?
Yes, so that is being dealt with by the planning team and will respond to the complaint.
Right.
Yep. Oh, it was Kevin. That's
Kevin
it.
Foster.
Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin that's just left. Yeah. Councillor Alan Platt.
On that one, Chairman, I think I might be able to help. Had an email from a resident at Eccleston who got the same letter 44 times. So they're not sending them your way, they're sending them to Eccleston. It was about the same planning application, by the way.
Right, thank you. Moving on, get my right sheet. Question from members of Liaison and the public. Has anybody got any questions? I think we've covered most things, to be honest, and the meeting's going on, but if anybody's got something. Right, move on. Item 7. Items for future meetings. A schedule set out deadlines for items to be requested on the agenda for the Chorley Liaison and dates for future meeting is enclosed. Yeah, it's probably a fortnight, isn't it, before for questions? Is that correct, Nina? Is it a fortnight? They've got to be about a fortnight, I think. Yeah. It's sooner the better, really. Obviously, it gives Nina and Ruth time to get the relevant officers and people involved. Right. We've got the dates there for future meetings. Item 8 is any urgent business previously agreed with the chair. I haven't got any. Good luck catching your bus, man. I'll put it somewhere here. Wednesday, 2006. Is it? 2026, yeah. 21st of Jan, that's it. I've not got the date on here for some reason.
The planning support meeting as soon as possible, if it's next month or sorry, December.
Yeah, sure. No worries, Councillor Barry. Thank you very much for your attendance and safe journey home.